Hi everyone. I hope you have studied the first video, watched the video several times, and studied the answers too. Do you remember the summary or what we had seen? Dr. Christian Barnard narrates in the essay In Celebration of Being Alive the accident he had met with and the lesson he had learned from Red Cross Children's Hospital. It can be given as introduction. His experience of meeting with an accident and the lesson he learned from an incident which he witnessed himself in Red Cross Children's Hospital, which changed his attitude towards suffering. Do you remember our essay? As he neared the end of his career, he began considering why people should suffer. This thought came to him when he met with an accident together with his wife and admitted in a hospital. Then he began thinking why people should suffer. Then he remembers that if his father had been alive, he would have said, "My son, it is God's will. God is testing you." Yes, suffering ennobles a person and makes him better. But being a doctor, he could not agree with his father. He sees no nobility in a man suffering or suffering of a child or children. Yes, then he narrates, an incident which he witnessed. Where? Do you remember? Red Cross Children's Hospital. Take page number 42. Yes, first paragraph over. We are coming to a second paragraph. So, an incident is being narrated. What happened there that morning? There in the hospital. What happened there that morning was that a nurse had left a breakfast trolley unattended. In that hospital, a nurse had left a breakfast trolley unattended. You know, in hospitals, patients are given food and the breakfast etc. is brought in a trolley. Trolley is something moving on wheels. Many steps would be there. Their food would be kept on one set or one step. Okay. Then vessels or plates will be on another. So they would push this trolley. And one fine morning there, one trolley was left unattended. Nobody was there. Okay. And very soon, this breakfast trolley was commandeered. Commandeer means take by force. Not snatching, but take by force. Commandeered by an intrepid means fearless or brave. Intrepid crew of two children. Crew actually employees in a ship. Okay, so here employees, they imagine to be the employees of that vehicle. Two children, a driver and a mechanic. One became a driver, another one became a mechanic. Have you seen small children playing bus, taxi, etc.? One would be standing, other one would be putting his hand on the shoulder of one who is standing in front. There will be many sometimes one would be standing in front and he would become the driver. He would turn the bus or jeep like that, or some days he would turn this way and he will make a sound, so the sound also would be made and they would play nicely. Sometimes the bus, if it is the one said ning, conductor ring the bell, the bus will stop. Ning ning, it will start once again. Children play nicely. Yes, here in this, a hospital, they were playing. Yes, a breakfast trolley was taken by force by a fearless or brave crew of two people. See, who are they? A driver and a mechanic. One became a driver or acting as a driver, and another one became a mechanic. The mechanic provided motor power. Engine should be there, no? Trolley, no engine, simply some steps, okay, to be pushed from behind, inside several things should be there. So some engine should be there. So he provided the engine sound by galloping along. Gallop actually is the movement of the horse. They would make some sound. Is it not so? Galloping along behind the trolley. Mechanic was behind the trolley. He was galloping to give some engine power and sound. With his head down, he became an engine. He's kept down under the shelf. While the driver seated on the lower deck of the trolley, he sat, putting both his legs on both sides and pushing, on the floor, the trolley would move. So giving energy and power. Yes. Lower deck held on with one hand. He was holding the trolley with one hand and steered by scraping his foot on the floor, as I have just now said. Forcing his foot on the floor. He made the trolley move. The choice of the roles was easy. For them it was easy. Who should become the driver and who to become the mechanic. Why? Because the mechanic was totally blind. The boy who was acting as a mechanic, he was completely blind. And the driver had only one arm. Other one was cut off. Amputated. So he had only one arm. Quite handicapped. So the choice of their roles, for them it was very easy, because one was completely blind and another one had only one arm. Yes. Still they were playing. Both the children were playing. See, playing car race. Car race, in a car race car, one driver would be there, one mechanic would be there. Mechanic would be an expert in all the mechanisms related to the car, and if there comes a complaint, he would be able to solve it. An expert mechanic. So one became driver and another became a mechanic. So mechanic was completely blind. So he cannot become a driver. That is why the choice of their roles was quite easy, because a blind man cannot become a driver. A driver had only one arm. So he was holding the trolley with one arm and pushing with both legs to make the trolley move forward. So two children playing. Yes, he calls it as what's that? Grand Prix of Cape Town's Red Cross Children's Hospital. So he really calls it in a humorously, our Dr. Christian Barnard calls this program as a Grand Prix car race, where Red Cross Children's Hospital. So two children were playing. They put on quite a show that day. On that day, they really put on a nice show, car race. Judging by the laughter and shouts of encouragement, the shouts and encouragement from the rest of the patients. They were clapping and saying up, up, up. Is it not so? And encouraging them to make the chase so faster and faster. Yes. It was much better entertainment than. It was much more better entertainment than anything anyone puts on at the Indianapolis 500 car race. Indianapolis is the capital of Indiana in America, a large state in America. So their car race is there, a type of car, 500 car race. Okay, it seemed to be a better entertainment than a real car race, says our Dr. Christian Barnard. It was so entertaining. If you judge the car race by the laughter, they were all laughing, the patients around. These children were able to make them laugh. They forgot their sorrows and suffering and all the suffering they were undergoing, and they began clapping and laughing. Yes, they were really playing. It was much more, a better program than a real car race. There was a grand finale, not final, finale, last item. You see, climax of scattered plates. They were pushing the trolley, plates were falling. Scattered plates and silverware, other vessels used for serving the breakfast. Before the nurses and ward sister caught up with them. At the end, the nurse came and the ward sister came and called these children and scolded them and put them back to bed. They were put back on their respective beds. Just imagine what happened there. 2 children simply playing in a hospital. They were patients, of course. Let us see. Let me tell about these 2. Let us see who these people, these children were. The mechanic was of, 7 years old. A small child of 7 years. One night, when his mother and father were drunk, generally father would come drunk to beat other people, especially mother. Very rarely only mother would retaliate. Some days that also would happen if she comes drunk. After some time, quarrel will be over. Mother would be so angry and she would give in return to the small children. All the anger that she feels towards her husband would be given to the children and they would be sufferers. Very often it happens. It happens. So here, in this case, father and mother, both of them were drunk. Yes. His mother threw a lantern at his father. They were really quarreling. Lantern, kind of a lamp, kerosene being, used. Okay. And she was so angry. She threw the lantern towards the father and what happened? Missed the target. Missed the aim. And the lantern broke over the child's head and shoulders. Kerosene got fire. And it fell on the child's head and shoulders. He suffered severe 3rd-degree burns. 3rd-degree burns means that may cause death. Critical, severe. So his upper part of his body was completely burned. On the upper part of his body and lost both his eyes. Both the eyes were lost. He became completely blind. See, father and mother were quarreling and the victim is the child. At the time of the Grand Prix, during the time of this Grand Prix, this car race, he was a walking horror. He was a symbol of horror. In what way? Let us see that with a disfigured face, completely burned, face disfigured, and a long flap of skin, long piece of skin. Hanging from the side of his neck to his body. From here, a flap of skin was hanging to his body. As the wound healed around the neck, it was completely burned. As the wound was getting healed, his jaw became gripped in a mass of fibrous tissue. This was burned and joined together. And it was joining and, it was together, stuck together. As it was burned, flesh being burned, The only way this boy could open his mouth was to raise his head. His jaw, this part, was being stuck here. When he raised his head, mouth will be opened. Because it was not moving. His jaw was not moving. It was stuck here. What a walking horror he was. He had been at that time. When I stopped by to see him after the race. He said, "You know, we won." I stopped and talked to him, and he was so happy and he was laughing. Mind you, he was laughing. He was so happy that they could, he had, or his friends together, they made a nice car race. And he proudly declared that they had won the race. And he was laughing. Actually, he was a symbol of suffering, symbol of horror. Still, he was playing, he was enjoying, he was celebrating that he was still alive. Walking horror, symbol of even death. Death might happen at any moment. Upper part of the body is almost burned up. And a pathetic scene he was. And still he was playing and making others laugh, and he was enjoying himself. And he said, "We won the race," and he was laughing. Yes. Okay. The trolley driver I know better. Another boy who became the driver. A few years before, I had successfully closed an operation. A hole in his heart. A heart operation I had, done to close a hole in his heart. He had returned to the hospital. He came back again because he had a malignant, means harmful, tumor. Tumor, brain tumor, etc. What is that? Growth of some cells. You see, what kind of growth? Abnormal growth. Some cell would be growing abnormally. So, malignant tumor, harmful tumor. You see, on the bone, of the bone. Yes, just growing in an abnormal way. Tumor was there. So, he came for that, to get operated. Okay. A few days before the race, just a few days before the race, his shoulder and arm were amputated. His shoulder and arm, it was completely amputated. Means cut off, removed completely. That means only one arm he had. The other one was cut off. Yes. Where is it? There was little hope of recovering. Everybody knew very well that this boy is not going to survive. Little means negative meaning. No chance for him to recover. It was very clear. After the Grand Prix, he proudly informed me that the race was a success. After the Grand Prix, he proudly informed me that the race was a success. The only problem was that the trolley's wheels were not properly oiled. The trolley's wheels were not properly oiled was the only problem. Humorously, he was telling that the trolley was not good enough. Wheels not working properly. Very difficult to move. But he was a good driver. He was a good driver. And he had full confidence in the mechanic. Together only they can make a good car race. One driver, one mechanic. He had a full confidence in his mechanic. That means a mechanic is an expert in all mechanism related to car and other things too. Okay, all mechanics he knows very well. He knew very well. So he had full confidence in his mechanic. Look at these children. Symbol of suffering, symbol of horror. Still they were playing, they were laughing. They made others happy. They made others happy and they enjoyed themselves. That is what people should look at suffering. Let us see what it is. What is meant by. Suddenly I realized that our doctor really realized a new lesson. These children had given me a profound lesson. Profound means deep. They had given me a deep lesson in getting on with the business of living. How to get on, how to continue with the business of living means being alive. how to continue with, our life, I learned a new lesson. Because the business of living is joy in the real sense of the word. Real happiness. The business of living is joy in the real sense of the word. Not just something for pleasure, amusement, or recreation. The business of living is not simply pleasure, amusement, or recreation. The business of living is a celebration of being alive. Mark it, understand clearly. The business of living is, what's it? A celebration of being alive. We must be celebrating that we are alive. Don't worry about other things. Don't think about other suffering and other problems and other things all. Nothing. Celebrate that you are alive. The business of living is celebration of being alive. Joy in the real sense of the word. The business of living is, remember it, celebration of being alive. I had been looking at suffering from the wrong end. That's our story. I was looking at suffering from the wrong end, from the wrong point of view. Did you think about the topic we discussed here? Did you discuss with your parents? I did not say the answer why people should suffer in the last video, first video, part 1. Can you tell me what is the reason why people should suffer? On the background of our corona, etc. People are suffering, Many have already died. Many might still have to suffer. Some would die also. Many would die. We know it. Why? Did you find any answer to that? Suppose if you ask your grandparents, or even parents, they would say, all the suffering because you have done something wrong. Old people would say, old generation people. Not simply wrong, sin, papamu. And God is punishing you for all the wrongs you have done. They might find an excuse. They would say, like the father of our Christian Barnard, they would say that God is testing you. And if you do well still, you would be rewarded for all the good things and all the suffering you have undertaken. They would find some answer. It is not scientific answer. No scientific man can agree with that. All the people would say, at least they would say fate, vidhi. It is your fate. Maybe your parents, grandparents and their parents might have done something wrong and you are suffering for that. Not at all. That's not the reason why people should suffer. Look at these children. They were suffering, symbol of suffering. Still they were enjoying life. Still they were celebrating that they are alive. Yes. So this lesson, this experience, this incident taught him a new lesson. He understood that the business of living is celebration of being alive. So he understood that he was looking at suffering from a wrong point of view. Yes. Okay. You see, I had been looking at suffering from the wrong end, from a wrong point of view. You don't become better person because you are suffering. Understand very clearly. You don't become better because you are suffering. No suffering can make a person better, or there is no nobility in suffering. But, next sentence, but you become better because you have experienced suffering. You become better because you have experienced suffering. That is what you have to learn. Suffering is there everywhere. We saw in the first paragraph itself. It is prevalent, common everywhere. Suffering is common everywhere. But suffering itself does not make a person better. And there is no nobility in suffering also. But the experience of suffering makes a man better. That is what you have to learn. We have learned the lesson. All of you have to learn this. What is it? Experience of suffering makes a person better. It's applicable to all of you, all of us. You can connect this with failure also. Failure itself does not make a man, a person better. But experience of a failure would make him better. He would be able to face it next time, or similar kind of failure when it comes next. He won't fail again. Experience would make a man better. Yes. So scientifically you cannot find a correct answer why there is suffering. It's part of life. There is. And suffering does not make a person better, but the experience of suffering makes him better. Yes. We can't appreciate light if we haven't known darkness. If we haven't known darkness, we can never appreciate light. We know the value of light if only we know what is meant by darkness. It's applicable to everything. Suppose if you don't know what is meant by poverty, you would never know what is meant by richness. Those are always live, in richness, wealth, luxury. They would never know what is meant by poverty. If at all they face some difficulty, financial crisis, they would never be able to face it. Yes, if only you know what is meant by poverty, then you know the real value of wealth and richness. Look at our own life. We know the value of light because we know what is meant by darkness. Lightlessness we know. That you know the value of light. Yes, there might come a stage when it is not there. Okay, na? Yes, once I read that. We can't appreciate light if we haven't known darkness. We can appreciate light and value it if only we know what is meant by darkness. Nor can we appreciate warmth, same thing, if we have never suffered cold. The value of warmth you would know if only you have suffered real cold. These children have shown me, or they showed me, it is not what that is that you have lost that is important. They taught me a new lesson. It is not what you have lost that is important. What is important is what you have left. Read once again. It is not what you have lost that is important. What is important is what you have left. Even while praying, you would go to God, temple, churches or anywhere, and you would ask God, I don't have this, I don't have that, I want this, give me, give me, give me. You never speak a word of thanks for all what is given to you. You never speak a word of thanks. You always ask, I want this, I want that, I want 95%, 98%. And you would give some bribery or some money in some other form as part of a service there. You would offer and pray that I should get first rank, second rank, at least first I want, at least second. Is it not so? You are going there to ask. There is a saying, I would complain for a shoes until I see a man who has no leg. Imagine a man was praying and two people were there. The first one, he does not have a good pair of shoes. Shoes is there, a little torn. And he was complaining to God that I don't have a good shoes. What a life is this. To buy a shoes I need 2,000, 3,000. Give me that, give me that, give me that. Then he heard a sound and looked behind and saw a man thanking God. He had only one leg. He was standing on one leg and thank God for giving at least one leg. That's why it is said, he won't complain again. I would complain for a shoes until I see a man who has no leg. See, always when you look up, you find someone who is better than you. Then you feel sad that I am so lower than him. You look down, there are many, hundreds are there. Those who are not at all as wealthy as you or as good as you or in many ways. You feel happy. Is it not so? That is how practically we have to face our life. There will be many above you, there will be many below you. Don't look down. See, the story here, what we learn is that it is not what is lost that is important, what is left. Though you may have many problems, you are suffering from some physical or some other problems, you think of what is remaining. Don't worry about what is lost. Think of what is left, what is remaining for you. These children have taught me the lesson. What is important is not what is lost, but what is left. Then he learned a new lesson. What is the lesson? The business of living is celebration of being alive. These children were celebrating their life. Though they have lost many things in their life and they were symbol of suffering, still they were celebrating their life and enjoying their life. Yes, because the business of living is celebration of being alive. That's our story. So Dr. Christian Barnard learned a lesson, a new lesson. He understood that he was looking at suffering from a wrong point of view. And he rectified himself, learning a new lesson from these two children. Remember all of you, what's the lesson? The business of living is celebration of being alive. What is lost is not important. What is left is more important. That is our story in celebration of being alive. Now, I hope now you have understood what is meant by in celebration of being alive. So he learned this lesson from these two children. And that's our story. Go through the lesson once again. Watch the video several times. Study the answers too. Meet you in the next video. Thank you.